Ever since Boruto came back in the time skip, we've all been waiting to see Boruto use karma and show mastery of Momoshiki's abilities, as it was even alluded to in chapter 68 when Boruto said he feels he could channel Momoshiki's power better after becoming 100% Otsutsuki. However, Boruto seems to be avoiding using his karma even in situations where he could really use it or need it. While he obviously didn't use it on Code, he could have used it against the Shinju since he was definitely getting pressed due to the numbers that they had over him. A little while back, I asked you guys what are some reasons that you think Boruto isn't using karma, and I said I would probably use some of the comments for a video, and in today's video I'm going to be taking your comments and talking about how likely or unlikely some of you guys' reasons are as to why Boruto isn't using karma. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a second and ask you guys watching if you can like, comment some video ideas I can cover in the future, and subscribe with post notifications on so you don't miss when I upload another video. So our first comment from Ichigo says, Boruto has not needed the karma yet, or when he may have needed it against the Shinju, it wouldn't be enough, so retreating made more sense. And honestly, to this I kinda disagree. I briefly touched on this in the intro, but Boruto not needing karma against Code is very true. However, I do believe that he could have used it against the Shinju. However, the possibility of retreating making more sense is definitely not out of the question. But the reason I would disagree with this is because Boruto still tried to fight even when advised he should escape earlier. When all of the other Shinju come out, and especially when Boruto sees Hadari, the toad on his neck tells him he failed the counterattack and to leave to regain their footing, but Boruto instead puts his guard up and is ready to fight. Boruto clearly wanted to fight the Shinju, and while clearly being outnumbered, this is also especially bad for Boruto because if they devour him, not only is he gonna die, but he's gonna fuel the divine tree into making a chakra fruit. Boruto also has a lot riding on his shoulders, as Kashin Koji even implies that if he dies, it would lead to the world's destruction. Our next comment from Alak Kumar says, he doesn't want to become over-reliant on using a tool and not growing himself as a ninja, unlike Kawaki who uses his karma for almost everything, which is definitely a good and understandable take. Basically what Alak is saying is that he can possibly use it without any drawbacks, but chooses not to rely on it so he can grow the foundation of his abilities and strength. We know that Boruto would rather stick to his ninja ways than to do things the way Otsutsuki do things, or to just rely on their power. Especially when comparing to Kawaki, who almost always relies on karma and thinks he needs it, while also thinking that the way shinobi do things in regards to training are slow and unreliable to take on strong opponents like this on the level of Otsutsuki. When Team 7 with the addition to Kawaki are about to train for the first time, Kawaki says that the basics are good, but how many years do they plan to drill in order to take down Code? 5 or even maybe 10 years, and he calls it a joke. Kawaki says it may be tradition, but it's inefficient since they would need too much time that ninja don't have when dealing with Otsutsuki level enemies. Whereas when Kawaki was being trained by Jigen, every moment was like hell to the point that he would wish he was dead, but even that wasn't possible. It wasn't until then that he started to really want strength in order to take down someone he couldn't stand to look at, and says that Jigen's methods were rational and made sense for growth. Whereas Kawaki thinks the Otsutsuki way of gaining powers makes sense, this is something we know Boruto couldn't disagree with more. Boruto was brought up on the shinobi way and thinks that hard work and guts is what it takes to be truly strong, so him not being reliant on using karma, especially when taken into account with the possible risks it could have, actually makes sense. Growing his base would just make him stronger while using karma regardless, so this idea is not something I'm too sure about, but I can definitely get behind it and think it would be believable in story. The next comment from Joshua Douglas says, he doesn't need it anymore, he's unstoppable. I mean, I really don't have much to say about this one, bro kinda cooking. But no, if I'm being serious, Boruto is extremely powerful right now, but he definitely doesn't seem to be the strongest in the series, like how I was saying earlier. The Shinju not only have numbers on him, but they're also not too far from Boruto's level. Boruto definitely seems to be above Jug pretty comfortably, as we see the Jug Shinju rush at Boruto, and Boruto seems to have no problem reacting and even damages the Shinju with his lightning style jutsu, and then getting away from him with flying Raijin. Matsuri doesn't have any feats since she just catches Boruto off guard, but Hadari just straight up matches Boruto's Rasengan and cancels it out, so they should be relative. And Jura seems to be the leader since he seems to know the most about their existence and is the one in command, so it would make sense for Jura to be the strongest out of the Shinju. The final comment from the straight says Sasuke probably told him to only use it when he needs to, or to space out the usage of it to keep Momoshiki at bay in some way and not being able to take over Boruto's body. Now this one I think is probably most likely. I can't really see anything else that would make more sense than this reasoning. Other than Momoshiki taking over from time to time, karma should just be useful to Boruto all around. Not only does it give him a major stats boost, but he can also use portals to get to different dimensions, which probably would have made the most sense to use to get to the different dimension where Tentos is being kept. Boruto goes out of his way to use flying Raijin instead of using space-time ninjutsu with his karma, and there has to be a reason why other than than Boruto just choosing to not use karma. I personally think that Boruto was somehow able to put Momoshiki's consciousness or soul into a corner similar to what Momoshiki said he needed Boruto to do in order for him to take over Boruto's body completely. The last time Boruto leaves his house, we see Momoshiki come out and speak to Boruto and tells him that he shouldn't make promises that he can't keep, talking about Boruto telling Hinata that he promises to come home. Momoshiki continues to remind Boruto that he will lose everything, and when that happens, Boruto will be in despair with no will to live, and Momoshiki will live out Boruto's life for him. He says all Boruto needs to do is cower quietly in a corner of his psyche for eternity, and him taking over Boruto's body for good will serve the same purpose as reviving into Boruto's body. But what really makes me think Boruto did this to Momoshiki instead is Boruto's response to all of this and how it's portrayed in the manga. Boruto shows his resolve and doubts shoving his consciousness into a corner is even possible for Momoshiki, and then tells him that he'll make sure Momoshiki can never emerge again, and says he will be the one to despair in the future. The reason why this makes me feel as if Boruto actually was able to make Momoshiki despair is because of how Kishimoto seemed to have put certain keywords in bold when talking to Momoshiki. Words like "I'll" and "you" are in bold, and it's almost as if those words in particular are important and should be paid close attention to. Momoshiki was also wrong about Boruto losing his will to live once he loses everything, as we see in chapter 80, and he seems to be genuinely surprised that Boruto's resolve is still strong. Not to mention that as a result of becoming 100% Otsutsuki, Boruto and Momoshiki's minds are fusing together, and Momoshiki seems to be able to come out and speak to Boruto more freely than he used to. Momoshiki also seemed to be getting desperate when he realized Boruto isn't giving up, so I can definitely imagine Momoshiki trying everything he can to make Boruto despair throughout the time skip, and Boruto needed to find a way to keep Momoshiki at bay and not interfere with his life. Although Boruto pushing Momoshiki's consciousness into a corner seems more likely to me, I can also see a world where Boruto is just choosing to not use karma. Karma hasn't done anything good for Boruto, and as a matter of fact, karma is what made Boruto's life start going downhill. Ever since Boruto has had karma, he's lost almost everything that's dear to him. His home, his friends, his family, his life in the village, even his humanity was all stripped away from Boruto once karma came into play. Boruto isn't looked at as an innocent child who's also the Hokage's son anymore. He's looked at as the host to an alien parasite that continues to live inside his body, and is even looked at as a threat without having to do anything bad of his own free will. He's also constantly being monitored in the village and can't even go on missions as a result of Momoshiki coming out being too dangerous. Boruto himself feels like he needs to off himself in order to prevent his dad or anyone else he loves from getting killed by Momoshiki. Even Shikamaru refers to him as a bomb that they can't control and have to constantly watch over. Even the Shinju just referred to him as Boruto Otsutsuki, and until chapter 6 of TBV, he probably hasn't been called Uzumaki since before Omnipotence took place. If Boruto just doesn't want to use karma because of all that is taken away from him, then I can fully understand that. I mean, why would he continue to use something that's only going to bring him more pain? However, we all know that Boruto is going to use karma in the future, so of course we're all wondering what could have changed from now until Boruto's fight with Kawaki that would make him use karma. I know a lot of people think maybe Boruto and Momoshiki will become friends or have to work together, similar to Naruto and Kurama, but I have to say, I'm not the biggest fan of this happening and would prefer a different route. I think at some point, Boruto is gonna have to realize that he can't take on Kawaki or upcoming threats with just his own power, and will have to accept that he's an Otsutsuki with karma and he can't change that. So he might as well use the tools he has to the best of his ability, especially since it seems that Boruto is just rejecting his karma, which is understandable for the reasons I went over in this video, but I think in some way, Boruto will have to accept his Otsutsuki side along with his shinobi side in order to truly be strong.